Welcome to our webinar presented by Seattle University's School of Law and the Master of Legal Science in Compliance and Risk Management program. I'm Frank DiMarino, your host, and I'm delighted to have you join us as we look forward to answering your questions from the webinar chat function or later through email. I serve as an affiliate faculty member and also a practitioner in residence for the Masters of Legal Studies in Compliance and Risk Management program. This webinar has a special guest, Christian Kennedy. Christian is a candidate in the Compliance and Risk Management program. Christian has also served with the Amgen company in pharmacovigilance as part of the Global Patient Safety Program at Amgen. Pharmacovigilance refers to the monitoring, reviewing, evaluating, and communicating of information on the safety of pharmaceutical products. Christian also got her degree from the Edward R. Murrow College of Communications at Washington State University. And she was also affiliated with the British Standards Institution, working in the medical device regulations sector. We'll hear more about Christian's background and her decision to join and to study in the Master of Legal Science program. After we hear from Christian, we'll have an opportunity to look at a program overview of the Master of Legal Science in Compliance and Risk Management program. We'll talk about next steps and also invite your questions and provide a vehicle for you to get your questions answered after our webinar. So without any further delay, let's invite Christian now to talk about her career path and her search for an advanced degree. Christian?
Sure. Hello, everyone. As Frank said, my name is Christian Kennedy, and I am a first-year student in the MLS program at Seattle University for Compliance and Risk Management. We are just entering our third term. I've made it 3 terms. It's going well. A little bit about me so you know who I am and where I've come from. I'm actually a native Northwesterner, although I currently live in Los Angeles. I'm originally from Portland, Oregon. And I don't care how long I'm in California, I still miss the Northwest. So Seattle is a very dear sister city, and this program also fed into a little bit into the decision of joining up at Seattle U. My background is in varied and interesting, but all ended up accumulating into a compliance role. So before I started my current profession, I attended the Edward R. Murrow College of Communications at Washington State. And after graduating from there, took off to Europe for a year to teach French, English in France, and they were gracious enough to teach me some French in return. I returned to Portland and then ended up getting an offer for my first job outside of college in Los Angeles, which is how I ended up here today. My first role was actually in marketing and communication strategy, and the first thing that I did was I was lucky enough to join an advertising agency. As a comm student with that as my specialty, it was very exciting. And about a year and a half later, I decided that it was not for me. So an opportunity opened up with what is now known as Westfield, who owns and operates real estate and shopping malls across the United States. And there I joined them in a marketing coordinator capacity. From there, I went on to my first big corporate job with MetLife in West LA and joined their internal communications team, where I operated as the internal print production manager. That evolved a little bit into some first online experiences, and also video and sound marketing, and was also directly coordinating with the training team for the Salesforce. So after a couple of years there, I was offered an amazing opportunity. For any of those who know the J. Paul Getty Trust and Museum, that's in Brentwood, West Los Angeles. They were just moving all their institutes to that location. And while a lot of my communications background was cycled around advertising, et cetera, promotional, I had a pretty deep technical background because my father is an engineer and my mom ran a computer lab. So I spent 18 months doing technical communications, writing maps for all of the different the institutions that were moving in, so they knew where to place things, and when people arrived, how they needed to get to where they needed to go. That evolved into running their training facility, which was an incredible experience. I was there when they opened the new facility, the new museum, and we also leased the facility out or donated the training facility to different nonprofits, which was a really great experience. And it also taught me the true value of giving back to community, because when those different MPs would come in, the different nonprofits, they would look to staff to volunteer to come in on a Saturday or Sunday and work. And it was very eye-opening as to the good work that's going on out there and how something as simple as volunteering for a day can give back. So from there, I went to Trader Joe's. If any of you are familiar, one of my favorite places to shop. And with them, it was also a technical communications strategy role. However, with technology and the communications and the business process side of things started to come regulations. I was the main auditing contact for the tech team. So when the agencies came knocking, I got to know them and how they operated and how we needed to operate very quickly. And that was my first introduction into what I would truly consider more of a compliance and regulation role. This evolved into joining a consulting firm where I had my first experience with Amgen many years ago, before I joined them full time about 7 years ago. So from there, we go into this very interesting period of time where this odd background of mine with communications and marketing and technology and production came to play. I worked on multiple consulting gigs and contracts as a producer, strategic content analyst, writer, and training consultant, which offered me an opportunity to travel around the world with companies like Princess Cruises, Cunard Line. I also got to work with the U.S. Forest Service and was hired specifically for that role because I had that regulatory background with Trader Joe's and Amgen, and went on to also work with numerous other clients and tech companies for that decade of time. That then led to an editor-in-chief role where the content strategy continued. I worked with the marketing director when she left, was the interim director during the launch of the company. It was called Make It Pro, and it was definitely a startup experience, very interesting up in the San Francisco area. And from there, I was introduced to a company called Blazant and went to work for them as their main contact, their main communications contact. Again, with both of these roles, there was a lot of interaction with agencies, whether it was the FCC, specifically, majority speaking, I would say. And then eventually ended up back at Amgen after that last experience with Blazant was over, and joined them as a compliance manager in the pharmacovigilance space. So I know that might be an odd foreign word for a lot of people. So essentially what it means is that we are in charge of global patient safety. So once a drug goes to market, if adverse events occur, they're reported back to the company, and that goes into the PV space. As the compliance manager for different areas inside of pharmacovigilance, I work with the business to make sure that their processes and procedures are aligned with the regulatory agencies and that we remain compliant. When there are findings or we have audits and inspections that may lead to corrective actions, I also manage those all the way through until delivery and final audit report is presented by the auditing team. And that is where I am today. So why did I decide to pursue a master's degree? And I think if we go to that next slide, it'll start to get us into probably the core of the story that you really came here to hear about today. So in biotechnology, the running line is that they like to see their staff well papered. So I have a great background and a lot of experience. Further education is looked upon very highly, especially if you're looking to move into a senior leadership role, which I am. So I started to look at traditional path, MBA programs, and they just weren't hitting quite the mark for me. There wasn't the communications aspect I was looking for, or the compliance and regulatory or law pieces that I felt I really needed to pull all this skill set together and kind of propel myself upward so that I would be ready for a leadership position. From there, I went and looked at MA programs and also MS programs in communications, because that almost made sense to me, or also made sense. How could I take my background, parlay it into an advanced degree, and really set a bigger foundation for growth? I also, at that time, got a new manager who was very supportive of further education and said, decide on your program, I'll sign off, as we do get some reimbursement every year for tuition. So I decided to do another sweep, because I also felt that the MA and MS programs weren't quite what I needed. And that's when I discovered master's in legal studies. So I went to quite a few orientations like you did here yourself today. I actually attended a couple for Seattle University, just as you are. And when I came to the second session, the speaker that day started to say things that really hit home with me. And then when we started to explore the program, I just knew. So it has the communications elements. It has the foundational pieces that I felt were absent in my background and my experience. Especially working for a big corporation, we work with law all the time. But usually when you get to that line where you go from the compliance space to legal, it goes, you hand it over with notes, and then it's taken from there. Or it goes to a senior manager or director, and they handle the discussions. So I loved the fact that it had a law foundation that had compliance and risk management built on top of it, and also focused quite greatly on communication and education, the educational experience. So what does that educational experience look like? If we go to the next slide, I will say one of the first things that got me over maybe some of the other programs which were fabulous as well, was the motto. And when I read that they believe in compliance with the conscious, again, it was one of those striking moments. It was a bit of a flashback to that first experience at the Getty Museum, where I started volunteering with nonprofits. And I had continued to volunteer, continued to contribute as a mentor in different areas, but it was the first time I had ever seen a program call that out. So digging a little deeper, I sent a note in and asked if I could please speak to the head of the program, because I was trying to make a decision. And Linda, who is not here tonight, set aside 30 minutes. We had an amazing discussion. The thing I also respected is she was very transparent. She talked about the program at Seattle University, and also said there were programs elsewhere that I might want to consider, where I also shared with her I had already attended some of those sessions. But I appreciated the conversation, the accessibility, the transparency. And after speaking with her, I really did believe that this was a program that was different and aligned best with my personal beliefs and my professional beliefs. I started the program last fall in a pandemic, which was a very different experience. But I will say this, one of the big things that I really appreciated as well is that working full time and then looking to also go to school, I needed flexibility. And sometimes my days are long, sometimes they're short, sometimes they're flexible, and sometimes they're not. So having an online program that does a bit of blend with live classes that are also recorded so they can accommodate. If you can attend a class, you can watch the recording. So I thought that was a great move on their part. Um, it also gave the opportunity for me to, schedule my evenings out or my weekends to kind of study at my own pace. If I wanted to get up early for a couple hours because I'm an early bird, great. I have fellow students in my cohort who are night owls, and they like the fact that they could, be online from 10 to 12, watching lectures, doing readings, and working on their assignments and discussion points. So as we got further into the program, and I can say this for every term so far, which I'm into my third, is that the professors and the staff here are here to support you and they want you to learn. They are accessible. I have never had a professor not respond, and some of them respond so quickly I'm stunned, at first. But if you have questions, they're there and they want you to ask and they want you to reach out. And it really showed to me a high level of teaching ethics and mores. It really represented, again, back to the motto of the program itself. So the courses are a nice blend. You have law courses, but then we had legal writing, research, and analysis. The next time it was compliance and risk management with governance, policy, and compliance law. Right now we have contract law, which prior to being a student, I thought would be the most boring class to attend. I love it. It's fantastic. I've already been able to start parlaying that into my career today. And I'll talk a little bit about that change in a few minutes. So the coursework is a great balance. You get law, you get compliance, you get risk management. There's communication tactics throughout. It is interactive, but it is also self-guided. So it allows you support while being flexible and able to accommodate, who you are, what you do, and the commitments you already have in place.
And Christian, could you, and I appreciate these comments about the program. You see that from a most important and critical point of view as a student and a candidate in this program. Could you give us your thinking a bit about what your experience has been with your fellow candidates? Have you found that the students are likewise engaged in the classes, and have you been challenged by their thinking in any of the courses?
I think that's a great question because I didn't really know what to expect there, having gone to a in-person, more traditional program for my undergraduate. So it has been really interesting. The individuals in my cohort are from many different backgrounds. Some are in compliance roles, some are not. Some are in related areas. Others have maybe just more recently graduated from their undergrad or another master's program and are coming in with interest in this program as well. So I think, like a traditional setting, you have maybe some individuals who are more engaged and talkative. You have individuals who in the discussion boards are much more active there. And then there are group projects later on that that also offer, another level, that all these personalities and different working ways come together. There have definitely been challenges, but I consider them to be good challenges. They're questioning. Most of them are coming from a point of view of wanting to know or wanting to share their experience and understand the differences and similarities. So we have people from aerospace, real estate, insurance, a lot of finance, and a few from healthcare, and a variety of others. So I think what that does for us as students is it helps lift our vision up, maybe from that specialty area. For someone like myself, I've been in this PV space for so long, which is fabulous. But I think to get you into more of that leadership mindset, it helps lift your vision up, lift your way of thinking up, so that you're thinking of compliance at a higher level as it applies to multiple industries and not just what your experience and view has been in your own career.
And Christian, have you found any big surprises so far in your program? Any things that you didn't expect that perhaps you wish would have been told to you in advance, or any other types of surprises?
Sure. I think that the big one, and yeah, I will be completely transparent with this group. I graduated from, I had my undergraduate degree was issued in 1990. So I was coming back to school after being gone for 30 years. Now I'd done corporate training and programs and such, which is a very different experience. So I had to learn how to study again. And I had not thought about that. Um, so I think that was a big surprise my first term. But I figured it out along the way, and a couple of the other students in the cohort expressed the same thing. Maybe we'd been away for quite some time, but it was amazing because if you were willing to share that on a board, people were like, "Oh, I have been too, and this is what I'm doing," or "I just got out of my undergraduate program, and we have this studies methods course, and this is what I do." So there was good support there, and maybe also some compassion or empathy, which was nice to have. And honestly, I think one of the biggest surprises for me, because I did go to such a big university, was the accessibility. And I have found that to be hugely beneficial in a way I didn't anticipate.
Well, well, thank you for your comments to those two questions. Would
You're
you
welcome.
would you like to talk further about your program experience and any benefits that you've envisioned from the program?
Yeah, I think one thing I'd like to kind of reference back to is, as the program started, and I did start probably that first term, spend a lot of time reteaching myself how to study, is we also, and I didn't understand at that time, I was getting those foundational elements of law put into place. I knew I was studying, but I didn't understand that, and probably until about halfway through second term. So it has a building block aspect to it that I really thought was great. In the writing, research, and analysis course, I was able to parlay the extra skills I was learning there into my current role immediately. And it started cutting down on time I had to spend in my current role as a compliance manager at Amgen. So, for example, I do all the regulatory intelligence for our group. And what that means is I go out and I gather all the information about rules, regulations, compliance issues that are changing globally, and discern which ones are most immediate and provide those reports to senior management. Because of the research skills I learned, I was able to cut my time down by probably 30%, which is huge. I didn't expect to benefit that immediately. On the legal front, I will say one of the areas I support, we have to do a lot of contract and review and references. And the way it's been structured previously is compliance reviews the internal governance, policies, procedures, et cetera, that are required. And they decide if an issue, is against compliance or doesn't meet compliance. But then those contracts I used to have to take in hand over because I just didn't have the experience. I'm now able to go through, read them from a very different viewpoint, and line them up with the compliance pieces, make all the notations, and then hand them over to the legal team. And they've even commented how much they're like, "You've always been good to work with, but your level of work has accelerated what's going on." So I was able to share with them I'm in a legal studies program. so I would say those are the two of the biggest benefits. I don't even have my degree yet, and what I'm learning in this program is immediately applicable. An additional thing, and this was a great compliment to get, is when we talk about challenge. I'm a very balanced personality. I push persistently yet kindly. So it's been very good for me in my career. However, I don't think I was able to, or didn't know how to ask tougher questions. And this has now been acknowledged by my director and her executive director. They're like, you're seeing things differently and you're asking much tougher questions than you did previously. So my director knew I was in the program, but I was able to then say, well, I decided to pursue my master's, and I'm able, it's changing things. It's changing the way I work and how I think, how I see.
That feedback from your colleagues and your coworkers, and indeed your supervisors, is so important, and especially as you're able to apply the concepts in your day-to-day work. So that's great to hear.
Yeah.
Any tips that you would like to share?
Yes, probably the biggest one that I learned during that first term is um, I really like online. They present the agenda, for the week. It's available as soon as you finish, the assignment or quiz or test from the previous week. So you can see what the overview is, what the readings are, the lectures, and if there's a discussion post that will be due, or possibly an assignment. So the first thing I do mostly on Sunday is I go through and I look at the two courses, what the agenda is for the week, what the deliverables are, and I plan to that. Um, the agendas are presented with the overview, reading, lecture, and then assignment format. However, I find it really helpful to watch the lecture first and then go back and do the readings. Sometimes I'll return and watch the lectures again, depending on the week. But planning has proven to be um, very beneficial, and especially not just planning it, but sticking to it the best you can. I mean, things happen for all of us, but at least you have a plan in place and you can adjust as needed. And it does, it is an investment. So joining a program like this, or even, other programs elsewhere, is a huge commitment. It's a commitment for yourself and your education and your time that you may need to take away from work or family, so that you can pursue something for yourself. And I waited 30 years to do this, and I'm telling you, it's worth it. At least that's been my experience. So investing in you and who you are and your career, it does pay off. Like I said, I'm already, just ending the year, end of the first year, and I'm seeing results already.
And could you give us an idea about how much time you spend a week on your studies?
Sure. So I would say I probably spend somewhere between 15 to 20 hours a week. Now, also keep in mind that there's often optional readings or other recommendations that aren't required. I typically do try to get to those as much as possible, which I'd say probably adds a couple hours a week. Especially if it's an area of interest. I tend to be a researcher and really like that. And so I'll click on one article, and the next thing you know, 2 hours has gone by, and I, am somewhere deep in the internet on the subject. But I would say it's probably the same commitment as a part-time job. So around 20 hours a week.
Okay. And I see a note here from Linda that perhaps investing in a good headset might be a good tip. Is that something that you've thought about?
Yes, and I am. It's funny you remember that from the conversation. Yes, headsets are a very good investment. I started off with a little. I have a Mac system, so I had my iPhone headset, and it worked pretty well. But I actually went and got a Bluetooth so that I could have more movement as I was listening to lectures, or dialing into classes even. I mean, something as simple as I forgot my notepad, or I wish I had the book to reference during this lecture. It allowed me movement and better sound quality as well.
Very good. And Christian, is there anything else that you'd like to add or to conclude with?
Sure. I think in conclusion, and I already alluded to this a bit, is for me, this program was the pick. And in the fact that I had already basically made my decisions, even though the two programs I'd selected weren't quite what I was looking for. So I went out and did a little extra research, and that's how I found out about the MLS program, and that's how I arrived at Seattle University. So, researching and finding the right fit is important, and investing in yourself, in whatever way, is also important. Part of this too is for me is about giving back. So I'm also hoping that as I go through the program and after graduating, that this makes me a better mentor for the couple of people at work that I'm mentoring in the compliance space, and provides more opportunity for growth into another level, or possibly even another area of compliance within my company, or who knows, maybe outside of, depending on how life goes. But I found this program to really fit my lifestyle and offer me an opportunity that I don't know. I would have found it otherwise, but I don't know if it would have been as good of a fit for me and my family, which was very important. So I encourage you to research, ask questions. Please ask questions. I know a lot of times people don't want to, but there really are no bad questions. So, and oftentimes when you ask, it makes other people think, and it helps people improve. It helps programs improve. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask questions, or be put in contact with someone to talk to, because students and professors and other staff members will make themselves available to you. So.
Well, Christian, you have offered terrific insights for anybody who may be considering seeking an advanced degree in compliance and risk management and considering Seattle University. I found it most interesting to hear how you've been able to leverage your academic work into your professional life, into your day-to-day working. So we have been honored and thrilled to have you describe your experience so far at Seattle University, and we wish you the most success in your career, both academically and professionally.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And if we could ask you to stay with us for a little bit longer, in case there may be a question or two that comes up, I would just like to spend a minute explaining the program in a bit more detail administratively. The Masters of Legal Studies in Compliance and Risk Management program, as Christian has explained, is an online part-time program, and it's designed to respond to societal demands and students' particular goals in compliance and risk management. They'll find that in our coursework that it's scenario-based in many topics, and that they will be able to take case studies, analyze them, and be able to evaluate how they can apply the concepts and the doctrines that we're teaching to their own professional lives. The program consists of 30 credits. It spans over 2 years, 6 terms, a fall, a spring, and a summer term. And students are expected to take two courses per term. So what that means then is that they're taking, on the average, 5 credits per term. The program is delivered in phases. As Christian mentioned at the beginning, there's a foundational phase where students take the courses legal analysis, research and writing, as well as introduction to the American legal system, we heard how Christian began to discover perhaps a new way of studying or beginning to take on a new role with her studies as she focused on the foundational courses at the very beginning. Then after that, the program shifts to an operational phase where we study foundations of regulatory compliance, risk management and auditing, contract review and policy drafting, one of the courses that Christian has indicated that she's very interested in, and also organizational investigations. And then from there, students are able to form a concentration among the electives. The concentrations are data privacy and cybersecurity, healthcare, corporate compliance, and also finance. In the last term, students are expected to to integrate the studies that they have completed and to demonstrate in an action way by developing a capstone project, by working with a stakeholder, a course facilitator, as well as the program director in formulating a capstone project. Doesn't have to be a paper. Some students are considering Excel spreadsheets, reviewing policies, suggesting new regulations. So this capstone project is really designed to allow the student to flourish based upon their own interests. So next steps. The earlier that you apply, really the better that it is because of considerations dealing with financial aid and also enrollments. So you can apply now for the part-time and fully online program. And to reach out to Linda Heemer, we have her contact information on an upcoming slide. You can discuss with her your academic goals, as well as what financial aid options may be available to you. You will find that she'll respond promptly to your inquiries and to your application. And you'll be able to begin your journey with us by enrolling in the program and starting with the foundation courses. One of the things too that you should be aware is that transfer credits in appropriate cases are also given. And also there are limited scholarships that are available. So some upcoming dates to be aware of. Priority deadline to apply tomorrow. How about that? July the 15th. But the final application deadline is August 7th. So you still have time to get in your application if this program is a good fit for you. Our online classes start September the 7th for the fall term. This is Linda's contact information. Her phone number, 206-398-4268. She is the Senior Director of our graduate law programs for the Seattle University School of Law, and she manages the MLS program. If you have questions, feel free to email Linda at lawgraduateonline@Seattle University. I am just going to take a look at the chat here before we close, and I see that there are no open questions involved in the chat. So I trust that everybody will be able to reach out to Linda with any questions that you may have. In the meantime, we truly thank our very sincere thanks and gratitude to Christian Kennedy for her taking the time to explain her background to us and her interests and how this program is contributing to her interests. Listen very intently about her comments about giving back. And I'm so delighted to hear that the motto of this program, compliance with a conscience, fits so well with Christian's goals of giving back to the community. So Christian, we're honored and thrilled to have you as our guest presenter this evening. And thank you again for your participation.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, everybody, for attending. If you have any questions, please reach out to Linda Heemer. We will now close our webinar. Thank you again.
Goodbye, everyone.